Welcome to yet another Taking Back Your Life 2016 Google Hangout series right here, brought to you by Survival Radio Network. My name is Clark Garrison. Many of you know me as the host of the conversation, which has been around since 2010. I am also the owner of the Survival Radio Network, a network that brings inspiration, motivation, and education to listeners worldwide with over 1.5 million downloads and over 40 shows that we broadcast from our station. For more information about that, just go to www.survivalradionetwork.us and you'll see all of our programming and listing shows. Now, this series really was brought to you because I wanted to bring an out-of-box ideology, principle, and practices for being the best you. And so I reached back and invited several of my friends who I'd met through my show and met as acquaintances here in the metro Atlanta area. And because I knew that they do just that. I mean, their principles are not traditional, and that's not what we wanted to bring. We didn't want to bring traditional ideologies because you can read that anywhere. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on my guest today. My guest teaches women how to eat healthy, how to deal with emotional eating, and how to lose weight properly. Please welcome to this forum emotional eating therapist and nutritional educator, Miss Shelley Chapman. Shelley, what's going on?
Hi.
I know, right? I need my little clap applause. I'm used to on radio having that. Hey, Shelley, thank you so much for being a part of this. You and I go way back. You were one of the first, you were absolutely the first person that talked about nutrition and healthy eating and eating disorders and things that I've ever had on my show. So that takes us way back. And I believe I've even had you on after that at some point, but thank you for being a part of this package.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be back.
Well, we're going to have fun. We're going to ask, I've got tons of questions here. Hopefully I can get through them in the next 50 minutes or so. We'll see. But I do want to let all the viewers and listeners out there who are tuning in and who will be tuning in to know that I do have the question and answer button activated. So if you've got a question you want to ask Ms. Chapman, just type it in, hit enter, and I'll see it. Or you can place it right on the event page, which is where you're watching this event from the first place. So let's dive in. My first question talks about, I mean, I've known your journey because you talked about it on the show and I've read about it. So having read your story, I understand it's been a lifelong journey for you. And like many women, you developed an eating disorder trying to cope with the separations of your parents. Mm-hmm. Could you talk about what kind of eating order that you had and the direct effects that it had in your life?
Yeah, so this was 1997, and I found out that my parents were getting a divorce, and I didn't know how to handle it. I am an only child. I grew up an only child, and it was just me and my mom and my dad, and at that moment, I felt like my family unit was splitting apart. So I felt like I was splitting apart, and as a result of that, I took to food to sort of find comfort. Now, at 17 years old, I didn't know that, but you know, I knew that Oreos and brown sugar Pop-Tarts and the crunchy Cheetos made sense to me when I felt really sad. So it developed into this relationship where whenever I would go through anything, I would go to food. And I had very specific foods. I was a compulsive overeater for 6 years. And in 2003, I started to really address my eating disorder. And I did counseling. I did individual counseling. I did group counseling. I read different books. I did food journaling. I did different dietary lifestyles. And the reason why it's such a journey to sort of come out of that is because it's never just one thing. Like an eating disorder isn't born out of just this one thing and there's this quick fix. There's usually this sort of affinity, if you will, with food, but it's wrapped into your emotions. So every single time that you feel these emotions, food comes up. So it takes some work, some serious work to sort of rewire your networks, your neural networks and the mental connections that you have around food, your emotional connections. And that's what it looked like. It also opened me to the power of transformation and change. In my heaviest, I was 177 pounds as a result of being emotionally connected to food and not just eating when I'm hungry and stopping when I'm full. And at 5'2", that's a lot of weight for me. I'm petite. And at that moment, that's when it finally clicked that I'm going to have to make some serious changes. And I literally just started changing my eating, and I started addressing my emotions when they hit, instead of running to cake or chips or pizza, whatever.
Wow. Well, and you know, you mentioned a little bit of this. So I also know that your educational journey helped you discover and conduct, you know, research on body imaging and women eating disorders and things like that. But even with that knowledge, it took you several years still to apply that to yourself. Why do you think that is so? What was it about even having the knowledge of knowing what's good and what's bad isn't always the answer?
Right, that's a good question. So just to backtrack a bit, I went to Spelman undergrad and I studied psychology. And that's when, while I was at Spelman, that's when my eating disorder was at its height. But I wasn't putting myself in that space. As far as I was concerned, I was studying women who had eating disorders and body image issues, but I could not see myself in that. And then I went to Harvard afterwards to get my master's in human development and psychology. And that was sort of at the height of it. And I said, okay, I really have to make a change. And even with the knowledge, even with their studying research and understanding it, it didn't apply to me because Black women don't have eating disorders. You know, when it comes to eating disorders, you see a lot of research being around white women. But when it comes to Black and brown women, we don't see ourselves in that equation. Food for us is something we get with our girlfriends, we get with our mom, our grandma, everybody's cooking, we talk. There's this love connection in it as well. But a lot of us do use it to numb out. A lot of us do use it to forget. A lot of us use it to escape. So it took me several years to really accept that this is what was going on, and I had to make a change. And it took my body to get to a size that I didn't even want to recognize for me to say this is a real problem.
Well, I got to go down the rabbit hole because you mentioned the fact that African-American women, and I understand why you said it this way, don't have eating disorders or those kind of things. And we even, you know, the saying is what? You hear this all the time, that, oh, they're just big boned, right? Any excuse to allow or to make more comfortable obesity, overweight, or whatever thing that may be happening on the physical side that kind of poo-poos it and says, oh, that's acceptable because you're Black. You're supposed to be thick.
Right.
And so I'm curious, because I know you've done study on this. Where does that come from?
So I'm going to say I haven't done a study on it. But I have talked to lots of different Black women, and it comes from this idea that the thickness, the having more curves and accepting that fullness in your body is beautiful and it's healthy. And so eating disorders, for the most part, are first world problems. Those are issues that you have when saying no or yes to food is a real choice. But if you're coming from a place where food is not something that you play with, or historically isn't something that you can just sort of waste or decide that you're, you know, going to restrict yourself or overindulge, then it's not looked upon like that. So the idea of going to food for comfort in the sense of an eating disorder being an emotional eater or a compulsive overeater isn't something that we necessarily talk about in our communities. And it's something that we should, because we all do it, and not just women, men do it too.
You know, and that's true with mental health. That's true with, you know, it's really true with every facet. It's like we are psychologically programmed to be some kind of super machine, that we're not affected by any ills of natural, you know, evolution.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot to bear.
Yeah.
You talk about creating a new relationship with one's body. That to me, having read over your websites and been nosy looking at you on everything from YouTube on out, seems like that's a main mantra for you, that it's ultimately about the relationship one creates with one's body and food. Can you explain in your words what that means?
Sure. So when I first started trying to figure out, how to heal my body and like I was trying to get rid of my eating disorder because I thought that's, how it worked. Like surely there's a pill or something I can just take to get this out of me. And I thought I was going to find the answer in eating healthy. So I said, okay, let me do veganism and vegetarianism because that's really healthy. So I was vegetarian for a year and I was vegan for 6 months. And I even did raw foods for 2 weeks. And I'll tell you, I got my life. Like I felt my body glow. I felt I had energy. My skin cleared up. The weight just kind of dropped off. I didn't even have to work out to get the weight off. The food took care of everything. But I still had that emotional component. And that's when I started to realize that even as a vegan, you can be an emotional eater. Even as a healthy eater, you can still have an eating disorder. You can have too much of a fixation on how much health you're getting, on counting calories, or you could just sort of be vegan, but instead of eating the greens and the fruits and the vegetables, you're really eating like the vegan pizza and the vegan cupcake. So having that understanding, I said, this isn't about food at all. This is about me and the relationship that I have with myself. And I had to go in and deepen that connection. So when I started bringing my body to the equation, to the table, and not just making it about the rules of a diet like veganism or vegetarianism, I started to realize that my body had wisdom. So me getting a hunger signal is actually really divine. Just think about it for a moment, that you're sitting there and you're minding your business. And inside, everything is just working. You don't even have to direct it. You don't have to say anything. Right. It just works itself. And somehow, divinely orchestrated, there's something that goes off that says, when the stomach is signal, send the human a signal, and that human will follow the signal from it's a message that's coming through. Who's in charge of that? You're not. You don't have to do anything to get that signal. All you have to do is when you get the signal is to feed your body the health, nutrition, and love and support that it needs so that it can continue to send you more signals. So I started, being in sync with that. And it took me to just listen to my body. So instead of listening to my lunch clock, because if you have a 9 to 5, you know what that means. Lunch isn't until 12 or 1 or whatever. What if you get hungry at 11?
Right.
You don't get hungry till 3, so we're constantly going against our body's wisdoms because we're focused outwardly. And it took me to go in to realize that, a lot of the healing and not just eating disorders or disordered eating, but also unhealthy behaviors can start within. But we spend a lot of time looking out for the answer and quick fixes.
Well, you gave me the perfect segue into my next question, which when thinking about changing your eating habits, there's so much information out there and so many different dietary styles. You mentioned vegan, the vegetarian raw foods, there's gluten-free, there's probably, right. There's like on and on and on. What's the thing where you only eat fruit or something?
Vegetarian.
Right. So
breatharian, where you only breathe air.
Oh.
It exists.
Oh wow! So for a novice, right, the woman or man that is just coming into this, and whether they're listening to this or they're just having that moment with themselves, it can be daunting. How do you help people choose the lifestyle that fits for them? How do you give them? You don't help them choose it, but you kind of push them in the right direction.
Yeah, I take them in. I take them inside because when I was searching for knowledge, one of the things I did is I was going to the internet, going to books, going to people, and I was asking a lot of questions, and everyone had a lot of great advice that worked for them. So the theme I started to see was that everything was particular to them, and they could only share what they knew about what worked for them. And I said, well, if I'm going to find what's going to work for me, I'm going to have to find what works for me. So it might be that I can sort of check in with the knowledge that I have, kind of reference it and see it as, okay, this is a guide, but ultimately I have to figure out what's best for me. So when I work with people, I have daily breakthrough sessions. It's a counseling session that I do for women and men who are interested in changing their body, losing weight, if they have an emotional eating issue, a stress eating issue. I take them through the session, and in the session, we eat. We have a 7-course meal. Yep, we have a 7-course meal. And in that meal, we explore different foods. And all of these foods have meanings and connections to us. And through the session, as I'm a trained psychologist, so a huge part of my job is to listen and to help the individual see where their blocks are to what they want. Because we all want to be healthy. We all want to look a certain way. We all want to experience like that optimal energy. But somehow, as much as we say we want to do this, we don't. And we have the resources, we have the tools, we have the knowledge, we have the information, but for whatever reason, we get blocked and we get stopped. So being able to work through those blockages and know what they are will help you stay on track. And being able to know what works for you by listening to your body and spending more time inside versus outside will help you figure out. Because let me say this, you ever had, like, let's just take Thanksgiving dinner. How do you feel after Thanksgiving dinner?
Oh, ridiculously full. Like, why did I do it in the first place?
Right. And do you feel bloated or even gassy?
All the above at my age. All of the above.
Right. We all do. And that is our body saying, no, thank you. This is not what we're supposed to do. This does not work for us. But we override that signal anyways. That message comes, we're like, whatever, we do it again the next day. And Thanksgiving dinner, sadly enough, is becoming the norm for a lot of American households. Overeating is a problem. You know, eating foods that are not conducive to your health. They may taste good, but all the banana pudding and the macaroni and cheese and the cornbread and all these starchy, sugary, buttery, you know, they taste delicious. But our body instantly says, you know, it starts feeling these ways. That's a no. And so I also help people understand their body signals. And when your body says this is what it means. But we think that it's just customary and it's not. So once you get in sync with your body and you understand that your body comes first, then you can take those messages and then reference the books and the experts like myself and the other guides and the TV shows and say, okay, this is what I want to do for my health.
Personal.
Mm-hmm.
When you yourself,
say that again, you went out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, this is better.
When you yourself were right at the crux of losing weight, right? You'd already made the decision. You knew that you were going to stick to it. You had the mental capacity to do it. So you're on the journey. I'm curious for you, what was the toughest part of that process?
The toughest part of that process for me was budget. Eating healthy in this country is something that seems to be for the privileged. It's challenging to have to sort of reorder your grocery shopping and the way that you approach food when budget is an issue. And so I felt sometimes like I was being cheated, like I wasn't able to experience the wealth of healthy items that I wanted to because my budget was restricted. So that was the hardest part. But what I was able to do was I was able to really dig in and do research, and I discovered that there were farmers markets and CSAs. And CSAs stand for community supported agriculture. Most major cities have them, and basically what they do is they connect with local farms in the area, and they say, hey, a bunch of us will get together, we'll support your farm, and then every week you give us produce from that farm. So you have fresh local produce that's in season, shipped to you from, you know, when I say shipped to you, brought to you, because it's usually within a state. And then you're supporting the farm and you're getting the health. And I mean, these can range anywhere from $25 to $50 a week. And they'll give you enough produce where you can eat off of that. So you're not wasting any money or anything like that. But that was one. And then the other challenge for me, the toughest part, was my emotional eating, because I literally had trained myself to deal with emotions through food. That was my therapy. That was my outlet. So when I had to say, all right, I'm going to deal with them, that was challenging because I didn't always want to deal with them. They weren't always comfortable, but that's what happens with weight loss too. One of the things I noticed is as I was coming down the scale, I would reach certain plateaus. Like I got to 160, kind of hung out there for a while, got into the 145, hung out there for a while, got to 130, hung out there for a while. So in these different stages, I'm looking different, I'm seeing myself differently. And as I'm seeing myself differently, I'm having different thoughts about myself. And I'm having different feelings about myself. And so some things would come up and it wouldn't be the best feeling, but I would not have been able to unlock that feeling had I not gone on the journey of coming down. So each stage brings out different stuff, but the tools that I used to make sure that I was going to get through this was journaling and letting it out. A huge part of the reason why emotional eaters and compulsive overeaters suffer is they literally stuff everything down. So, you know, whatever pain you're going through, frustration, resentment, anger, if you eat it, you literally, because what happens is when you feel that discomfort, it's trying to come out. It's coming up. So you feel it and you're like, no, I don't want to feel this. And you put it right back down again. And so you're stuffing. And when you stop stuffing, now all of a sudden that stuff is opening up and it starts rising back to the top again. And when it comes to the top, and it comes in stages, at different stages in your weight, you picked up shit. You know, you picked up stuff. So you may not be able to get to that stage until you bring your body into that stage that is ready. And once you are letting it out, either through speaking, you know, if you have a therapist, I recommend going to one, but if not, give yourself therapy, get a journal, write it out, you know, get an audio recorder, speak it out, get some art, paint it out, go to dance it out, whatever you need to do, but you want to remove it from your body.
I meant to ask you this earlier, and you touched on it a bit, but just for the video, what in you, it's one thing for you to have all this information and use it for self, and you did. What then clicked in you? What was the aha moment that said, you know what? I want to share this with others, and I want to help others transform. That's a selfless act. What was that about for you?
I just remember going through my journey alone. And while I did it, I realized I didn't have to. I realized that I could have found community, but it was challenging to find community because most of the groups and sessions where I found it, people talking about eating disorders or, you know, were generally white women. And I saw that my sisters were missing. But I knew in my personal journey, because I'm friends with a lot of Black women, I have Black women in my family, you know, we talk, we get together around food and we talk, and we're going shopping together. So I'm hearing the way that they're talking about themselves. I'm hearing the struggles that they have with food and with their bodies. And I'm saying, God, like, who's going to talk to us? You know, so I wanted to talk to us, you know, and I'm not making this a Black or white issue. I'm just saying that what I've noticed is that Black women don't have the support in the sense that I see that's available in other communities. And so that was it. And I'm a woman and I don't have any children yet, but I hope to have daughters soon. I'm not, let me that was a Freudian slip.
I saw. That's okay. Speak it in the universe.
Wow. Super Freudian slip. But anyways, when I do have daughters, I want my daughters to know that they're enough. Currently, we live in a society and we're transitioning out of it. I do see the changes happening, but we live in a society where women are told that they have to restrict themselves or be something else or overindulge or, you know, change something about themselves in order to be loved and liked and accepted. And that is a fallacy. That is not true. And as long as we have those type of beliefs, women will restrict their eating or overindulge their eating, or they'll try to change their bodies in these means through surgery and waist trainers and all type of stuff that cause further health issues down the line. And I see women literally destroying themselves and killing themselves because they're trying to fit into an ideal that has nothing to do with them.
Wow. You know, I'm so caught up with that answer. I have like a couple of follow-ups, but I'm going to stay on course because time is of the essence when I get through this. But, you know, I got to ask this because I think you're a perfect person, having gone through the journey and you know both sides of the fence, and you teach and instruct and coach people through this process. So there seems to be an industry trend. Mm-hmm. For those who are obese, and especially with women, I'm speaking on that subject now for women, who are obese and overweight that, for lack of better words, says that it's okay to be that. So they guise it into, oh, it's okay. You're what's the label that they give them?
Body positive.
Yeah, when they say, well, you can still be sexy and fine.
Health at every size. I know that's one.
Yeah, and while I truly understand the need for confidence and self-love, and I'm not even talking about that aspect of it, I'm really talking about the promotional branding kind of, the corporate American promotional push for either magazines or just image conscious of classification of that as being okay, in a sense that I think it on one end it shares some kind of positive image, but based on what you've talked to us about, that's just a front, because there's so much more involved on, the whatever that it got you to that point, that mental aspect that you're still coping with, no matter if someone says, oh, at that size, you're still, you can be sexy, you can be this and you can be that. Well, that's great, but it's if you haven't dealt with what you're talking about, then you're still going to be messed up on the inside. So I'm curious, where do you stand on that kind of branding when if it's a hard conversation because I don't want to step on any toes, but do you understand where I'm coming with that question?
I think what you're asking me, and just to make sure I'm clear, is that how do I feel about images being pushed of different body sizes, particular larger body sizes, as being okay? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, absolutely.
I never try to assume that any woman who's in a certain weight loss or program, or at what any stage in her body that she's an emotional eater, or that she's going through the same thing. Because for some women, they don't go to food for emotions. They just eat the wrong foods, So if they clean up their diet, then it's not an issue. It's not a problem. The women I address and the men I address are usually the ones who are still emotionally attached, even if they have clean eating habits. But I do think that as we move forward, we do need to make room for body types. And I'm not going to say that being fat or being skinny is healthy or not healthy, because that's not necessarily true. But I do think that there are various body types and standards that we have in the world. And currently, the real danger is that we only promote one or two. And only those people who fit that body type can actually fit into that body type. Everybody else is just sitting here on the outside thinking that they're wrong, that they're messed up, that somehow God messed up with them, and they need to change themselves to be that. So that's my biggest issue. And I think that everyone has a right to speak for themselves. So if women who are plus size and are really happy about being plus size and they revel in that, and if they get together and have a commercial, big ups. Like I support you, because what you're allowing is for those other women who look like you, who don't see themselves, to say, oh, okay, well, she feels comfortable. And sometimes it's all it takes. I'll tell you a personal story. When I was like 10 or 11, I didn't think I was beautiful, because at the time, if I saw women on the screen on TV, it was white women or light-skinned Black women. So I wasn't seeing a lot of like darker skinned women, and I had natural hair. Like I wasn't seeing any of that. And then one day I saw Naomi Campbell on the cover of a magazine, and she had her full lips. And I used to kind of like bite my lips as a little girl because I wanted them to be smaller, because I felt like I had the biggest lips, and I got teased for it. And then I see Naomi Campbell just being beautiful and graceful and Black unapologetically, with her full lips on the cover of this magazine. And that gave me light. So I think that it's okay to show various bodies. I think it's a great idea to show that we come in different sizes, and stop promoting this, these little two models that everyone tries to fit into.
Well, thank you for answering that, because I screwed up the question royally, and I apologize to anybody listening to it. But I did want to touch on the fact that there's that fine line, right? It's the marketing that goes out, which I don't think, let's be real. The marketers who do that are just trying to sell that group of people products, services, etc. They really don't care if they're healthy or not. And so the division I want to make sure is, yes, there's a inner self-confidence that goes along with seeing something that represents you. whether in your case it's a brown skin, like I'm brown skin. And I know exactly what you mean. There was a time when I was growing up, if you weren't a light skinned, curly head man, it was like, In fact, I modeled when I was young, coming out of college. And at the time, when I first got out, the only reason I thought I could model is because skinny, tall guys were in. But what was messed up is the year I got into the industry, the very next year was when Tyson Beckford came out. And he turned the needle to all of a sudden you had to be in shape and ripped. So overnight, all of us tall, skinny, lanky, fit like a coat hanger guys were like, not so much. So I get it.
You get it, man. Yeah,
I totally get it. Body types matter, and especially with what you see. But I was just curious because it's one thing to have body types and have self-love. It's one thing to keep promoting a propaganda of it's okay to be overweight or even underweight, and not take a look at that. It's because, you're walking around and perhaps for someone who's overweight or obese, because just recently, I didn't even know I was overweight, but I was looking back on some pictures. I was like, oh my God, nobody told me. I looked a hot mess. And I felt it physically. So yeah, I could have stayed there and just said, hey, this is just who I am, and suffered from every disease out and just called it excuses. Or could I have done something that made me healthy? And again, we're talking healthy, not body types, because you can be healthy at I understand this right, at all body types, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. So I just wanted to redeem myself.
No, and that perfectly makes sense. And I'm glad that you're making the distinction, because there are those who will sort of hide behind their weight and use it as essentially a barrier to them being fully integrated in the world. And a lot of them have their different reasons for that. But that does run the risk of you having these complications further down the line. And the question that I always ask my clients that I work with is like to say, what do you want for your life? Like when you think about yourself tomorrow, not even 5 years from now, tomorrow, how do you want to feel? How do you want to approach today? When you wake up, do you want to feel tired and bloated and feeling like you didn't rest at all? Or do you want to wake up and feel like this day is for you to conquer, to rise? And what you eat can determine that.
Wow.
So as simple as what you eat the meal before can determine your next 4 hours. So we're not talking about like these long distant futures. Oh, when I lose 80 pounds, I'll be. No, let's talk about 4 hours from now. How do you want to feel? All right, let's eat to that occasion.
What do you think about the term happy foods?
What is that? I don't know if I've heard it.
It's that go-to food that we all have that makes us smile. This makes us, oh my God, no matter what day we had, if we can just get this in front of us.
That is okay. Happy food. So I call them comfort foods, but it's the same thing, right? Because the reason why I say comfort foods is because there are times where I'm not necessarily wanting to feel happy. Because I was a compulsive overeater for 6 years and an emotional eater for 10 years, I literally developed this relationship where different foods brought about different things. So, for example, if I was feeling like, say I didn't have a boyfriend or a partner and I really wanted intimacy, I would go to chocolate.
Wow.
So if I was angry and I wanted to vent, I would go to something crunchy like chips.
Wow.
Because the munching and the crunch it's that aggression, you know what I mean? You get to get it out. The chocolate is a kiss. So I had these ideas about how food could really help me. Now, mind you, we've already talked about how that's not helpful. So what I think about comfort foods is this. I think that comfort foods are something that exists in life. And as I used to think when I started this journey that one day I'd be able to say that I cured my emotional eating. And I can fully say now that I am still an emotional person, but I am now a conscious eater. And so consciously, if I start to feel an emotion that is one of sadness or anger, or I feel like I'm lacking something and I want, and my go-to is to go to the kitchen and get something. What I did to help that process is I started saying, all right, I'm not going to go to the kitchen and get garbage because I don't want to continue this feeling. I want to transform this feeling from the sadness to joy, from, feeling lonely to feeling like I'm actually enough and I'm everything that matters. And I started looking at food as a transformation tool. And I started to realize that food is energy. So if I wanted chocolate, instead of going to get a chocolate piece of cake or a chocolate candy bar, I said, I'm going to make my own chocolate mousse. And I would take an avocado and I mash the avocado like guacamole. And then I would add in a little bit of coconut cream. And then I'd add in a little bit of chocolate powder and a little bit of maple syrup. And I'd whip that up and I would have a mousse, a chocolate mousse that I could eat. And the thing about it was that this was real food. This wasn't, Jell-O or some type Jell-O pudding. This was real food. So because it's real food, it's going to speak to my body differently. That avocado is going to go inside and it's actually going to make love to my insides. It's not going to ruin me like the whatever powdered mix I get off of the shelf. And so I started to let food speak to me. And when I was doing it that way, I wasn't overeating. I wasn't overindulging. I was just eating enough to get the nutrition that my body needed. And 4 hours later, I would feel fine.
So let's delve back into, and we were going down this road. I took us away, but I want to talk about eating habits a little more. I've always heard it said you should eat in color. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, eating in color essentially means that you're eating a variety of foods. And if you're eating in color, then you're definitely picking from those food groups. And my answer is yes, you should. And that doesn't mean eating in color like a hamburger. Green lettuce, red ketchup, yellow mustard, brown burger, tan bun.
Glad you clarified that up.
Red bacon, that's all we mean. But it does mean being able to draw a variety of nutrients from everything you eat. And a lot of times we tend to get, we tend to sort of have a mono diet where we kind of eat the same thing over and over again. And you can get, say, like a specific mineral or a specific vitamin in many different foods. So you don't have to eat the same thing. But it definitely is good for your body and good for your taste buds, because the beautiful thing about that is that if you need a certain mineral, but you don't like it from this vegetable and you prefer it from this vegetable, well, then you can switch vegetables. Your body's not going to be neglected from what you need because of your taste buds. So I think from a culinary standpoint as well, it gives you a lot more flavor and a lot more color to play with. We all eat with our eyes, so it's helpful.
Likewise, being nosy, I think I saw this on your website. Explain this term for our viewers. God is in the greens.
God is in the greens. So God is in the greens is for anyone who wants to hear more about it. It's on my SoundCloud page, and we'll have I'm at Shelley Wellness on all social media. That's SHELLEY Wellness. But you can find me there on SoundCloud. And God is in the greens came about from drinking a green smoothie. And it just hit me that these plants that grow on the earth we kind of live in a culture where we treat them as maybe like decoration for your lawn or just something to pretty up a street so it doesn't seem so concrete. But we really are far removed. If you did not grow up in the country, we really are far removed from the earth and from the farm and from the vitality that is like the plants that grow on earth. And so even when we eat our vegetables, they come packaged in a plastic bag. So we don't always think about where they come from. But they come from the earth, and the earth is alive. And the plant itself is a live being that's inspirited with God. And it has instructions. Every single plant has instructions. So if you think about your body as a computer and the food you eat is software, when you put a mint plant or a basil plant into your body, they do different things. Like if you put a piece of ginger into your body, it helps your digestive system. The fact that ginger knows to do that, get into your body and help, and you don't have to direct it. All you got to do is eat it. It's like magic, And so that's when I really started to realize that God is in this. And if I'm going to heal from my eating disorder, And if I'm going to heal my body, any dis-ease, any discomfort that I have, I'm going to need the assistance of God. And God is in the greens.
I love that analogy and definition. You should write a book on that.
Oh.
Just that alone can be, I mean, that's like, you should do a book, you should do poetry on that, you should do a show on it. It's the perfect everything. Because that is, I never thought about the fact that what those things, like you said, ginger, and I'm a big ginger person. We grind it up in everything, that it just knows what to do and where to go. It's not self-directed. And that's an interesting concept, because that is the universe. That is God.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. All right. You got me on that one. Okay, so we're winding down, but before I let you go, and I want you to talk about your upcoming events and product and services, where people can go to for those who need your mentorship and coaching. But before I let you go, and you named one, it sounded so good, I wrote it down. But I wonder if you would make mention of a few of your favorite dishes.
Oh, absolutely. So we talked about the chocolate avocado mousse.
Oh.
And I do love plantains. I love sweet plantains, green plantains, and one of my favorite dishes is nachos. And I like nachos because nachos are this very intimate way of eating. I like eating with my hands and my fingers. I think when you use utensils, you get in the way of your relationship with food. I think that you also block your signals. There's something about touching the food. There's a vibration that goes through you, and then putting it inside of you that your body can tell you when you've had enough, when you need more. There's a whole conversation that's happening. And when you introduce a metal fork, it just breaks the conversation. And also, when I look at a lot of traditional cultures, Nigeria, India, Ethiopia, people eat with their hands, Morocco, and they eat communally. So nachos is this communal hand eating dish. And when I was changing my diet, I was trying to find other ways to eat it instead of using the corn tortilla chips, because I was worried about GMO corn. I was worried about pesticides and all types of stuff. I said, I got to find something else. So I started using plantain chips. And the plantain chips as a base, and cassava chips as well as a base for the nachos. So that's something else that I really like. And I'm really a big fan of substituting recipes. I don't think that we need to get rid of hamburgers and nachos. And I'm not saying everyone on the planet needs to be vegan. What I am saying is that everyone on the planet needs to be conscious about what we eat. And so if we can start to substitute ingredients that are better for us, then do it. And I do that all the time on my YouTube channel. So for those of you who want recipes or want to see the stuff I cook, it's on YouTube, Shelley Wellness. But yeah, those are some of my favorite stuff. And then I know this, I just listed chocolate mousse and nachos. I do eat. On the healthy side, I really do love grapefruit. Just straight grapefruit, like by itself. That's one of my favorite citrus fruits to eat. I also like lime, like sucking lime. And lime is another thing that's really interesting. Whenever I feel congested, like I have a lot of mucus, I can just suck on lime. And within like an hour or so, I'm hacking up stuff. You know, I think there's a beauty too in just eating natural foods by themselves instead of trying to do fruit salads and mixing and all this other stuff. Just eat it by itself, you know, and see how your body responds. So I always recommend to people, like, just try it. You know, I remember cooking Brussels sprouts the other day, and it's like, what is this? Never had this before. I was talking to a friend about it, and I was like, just try it. And they tried it and fell in love with it. So I always encourage people, when you go to the farmer's market or the grocery store, walk through the produce aisle and pick up one thing that you never ever tried before. Pick it up, go home, Google, come to my website, Body Food Freedom. I might have a recipe, but Google it and see a way that you can make it and just try it, because it might speak to your body in a way that you've been looking for and didn't know.
Wow, you got me hungry. So thank you for that. And
That's my specialty.
And so I want nachos so bad right now. I don't know what to do.
Try it with the plantain chips, even minced plantain chips with cassava and the corn. You get your life.
Okay, there it is. So you mentioned, we know that all of your social media is Shelley Wellness. You talked about your website. You got anything coming up? Any seminars, symposiums, workshops?
In May, the belly breakthrough sessions that I was mentioning will be resuming those again. So I have some availability, some slots opening up. So go to bodyfoodfreedom.com and you can join the mailing list. And so I'll be sending out information for that. So when the slots open up, you can join for the belly breakthrough sessions, as well as in April, I will be releasing some new YouTube videos focused around body image. So a lot of what we were talking about, and also fibroids. This is something we didn't talk about, but this is something that does affect Black women. And I myself have recently learned that I have fibroids. And so that was a huge shock, especially when I think that I eat healthy. But fibroids are also emotionally based. They have emotional and physical components to them. So I'm going to be releasing some YouTube videos about how to heal your fibroids naturally, how to eat so that you're not feeding your fibroids. And yeah, just come on social media. I'm there. Say hi.
Yesterday, spring day tips you want to give?
Any spring tips? Clean out, detox. The same way you clean your house, clean out your body. Clean out your body. It's a good time. The universe is in support of it. The seasons are in support of it. Whether you do a 3-day, 5-day, 7-day, or 21-day, it doesn't matter. But do a detox. I recommend juice fast. I recommend not eating, because what happens in the wintertime, especially coming off of the holidays, we've eaten so much. We have like overburden our system. Our digestive system just needs a break. You're not going to starve. You'll survive.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, give yourself at least a 3-day break from eating and do a nice juice cleanse, do a nice juice fast, and pray up. Pray up.
Shelley, thank you so very much. You are the bomb. It's always a pleasure to hear your knowledge and insight.
I had a great time with you too. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
And guys, I want to thank you guys for hanging out with us, whether you're listening to us live or some of the playbacks that we have. Make sure you go to my website at clarkgarrison.com, KLARQUE, Garrison with a G.com. On that website, you can see our total previous guest list and all of the replays of the raw footage, as well as guests that'll be coming up on our Taking Back Your Life series. We hope you continue to hang out with us. We've got some more phenomenal people coming up. Also, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel to see all of the great edits that we're going to do. That is also at youtube.com. Put in Clark Garrison. Next up, Jerry Turin, who will be discussing Living from the Heart. That's March 24th, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you guys again. Remember, don't be average. It's the best of the worst and the worst of the best, and you absolutely don't want to be either. Thank you so very much. We'll see you next time.